Hello, dear students. Today we are going to discuss about a new topic called as an uniform costing. So, what do you mean by uniform costing and interfirm comparison? In every company, it is observed that different industries or different industrial units of the same industry, or they uses the different type of costing principles or practices. So in this situation, accumulation and interpretation of costing data for the sake of appraisal or comparison of performance or for the making, it becomes very difficult. Uniform costing, therefore, it seeks to introduce certain common principles and practices which will help to provide a common denominator in collecting, presentation, and interpretation of costing data in different undertakings. It is the adoption of standardized principles and methods of costing by a number of business enterprises. And the system of uniform costing is suitable only when two or more unit wants to follow the same costing principles and practices. Now, I would like to give you some examples so that the concept of uniform costing it may be understood. Dear students, suppose a single enterprise having number of manufacturing units under the same ownership and the management. For example, a number of steel mills owned and managed by one group may adopt the uniform costing as its practice because there is a ownership is also same and management is also same, but they are having the number of different manufacturing units under the same ownership and management. So in that case, the management wants to compare the costing data as well as interpret and take the decisions. So for that purpose, they will use the same accounting principles and practices for the purpose of data collection, interpretation, and it will help in the decision making also. The second example I would like to quote is that number of undertakings in the same industry which may have companies in the steel industry, they may adopt the uniform costing. And the third I would like to quote is that suppose there are industries which are from the different areas, but they engage in similar line of trade. For example, cotton, woolen, jute, textile, various types of transport industries, they can use the uniform costing principles and methods. Now let us move on towards the meaning of uniform costing. Uniform costing, it is used by several undertakings of the same costing principles and practices. It is not new concept of or method of accounting. It is the adoption of identical costing principles and procedures by several units of the same industry by their mutual agreement. So in uniform costing, a body of principles and accounting methods which when adopted in the accounting system of a firm, they enable to obtain the cost and accounting figures by individual undertakings within an industry, which will be fully comparable. And from this, it can be observed that unless there is some basic similarity among the companies within an industry with regard to their structure, method, similarity, common pattern in accounting system, it would be difficult to adopt the uniform costing system. So I hope through this particular meaning, the meaning of uniform costing has been clear. Now let us move on toward the definition of uniform costing. The Institute of Cost and Management Accountant London, they define uniform costing as the use by several undertakings of the same costing system. That is, they are having same basic costing methods, principles, and techniques. So from this definition, we can say that uniform costing is a system which uses common accounting principles, basic concepts, and the accounting cost accounting standards and practices by several firms of the same industry. Or in other words, I can say uniform costing is not a different method of costing, rather it is a practice of using the same costing principles or practices by number of firms whether or not under the same management or industry. So uniform costing will help in interfirm comparison, it help in fixation of price, cost control, cost reduction, and it will also help in tax relief or protection from the government. Now, what are the objectives of uniform costing? The uniform costing used to achieve certain objectives. For example, to promote the uniform costing method with a view to facilitate valid cost comparison between the organization. To compare the cost between the organization, uniform costing is required. To enable each firm to measure its own efficiency in terms of industrial standard and eliminate inefficiencies. To serve as a basis for government's subsidies or the grants, we need similar costing system to ensure equitable distribution. To serve as a basis of competitive but non-destructive bidding, to effect improvement in labor and machine performance, production methods and techniques. The one more objective is to fix a common price which is acceptable to all, so that it will bring the stability in price of the production, as well as it will help in standardizing the several common processes of operation used in member undertakings. And the last, it will help the trade association in regulating production capacity and deciding on pricing policy. The important objective of uniform costing is to make available with reliable cost data for inter-firm comparison. Now, why the uniform costing should be adopted in an industry? Because once the similar type of costing principles and practices are being adopted in an industry when they are working in more than two units, one or two units. So in that case, comparison between that particular units become difficult, and therefore, to facilitate the inter-firm comparison, which is the basic objective of uniform costing, that can be possible through the use of uniform costing. Now let us move on and talk about the several advantages of uniform costing. How and why uniform costing is beneficial for all the participating units. The first is it facilitates negotiation with the government agencies. See, uniform costing will help the trade association in negotiation with the government. For example, when industry seeks any assistance or concession from the government in terms of subsidies, export, taxation, duties, and price determination, then as we have followed the same accounting policies and principles, so it will help in negotiating with the government agencies. Similarly, it will also facilitate price fixation because unhealthy competition is avoided because of uniform costing between the firms of the same industry, so that framing policies and submitting tenders can be easily done. It will also help government in regulating the prices of the product because prices are essential and important items such as bread, you can say flour, sugar, cement, steel. So when we are following the similar type of accounting pattern or similar type of cost structure, in that case, what happens? The fixation of price in terms of some perishable goods or consumer durable products, it becomes difficult when we are using the different accounting principles and standards. So as we are using the same, so it will be very easy to price the prices for bread, flour, sugar, cement, or steel, etc. It is also useful for management control because performance of individual unit can be measured against the norms which are set for the industry as a whole, and it will assist in standardization of operation and performance in the industry also. It will also facilitate healthy competition because to avoid the cutthroat competition by ensuring competition among the member unit processed on healthy lines only. Then locating weak points. When we do the comparison between the one or more units of the same industry, it will help in locating the weak spots and take the remedial action wherever it is necessary. It also leads to stability because the weaker members they can take advantages of efficient method of production, the production control of the better managed unit so as to increase their own efficiency, and this will provide the stability in the industry. The one more advantage is that cost conscientiousness. Uniform costing creates the cost conscientiousness by showing the best way of doing the things. It provides the best system of cost control and cost presentation in the entire industry. Presentation of information. When the government designs to obtain the data for ensuring effective price control, uniform costing enables furnishing the suitable data immediately. Customers' confidence. Prices are based on uniform costing information. It may be taken reliable and representable for the whole industry. And this will create the customer confidence and it will improve the relationship between the customer and the industry. Economy. The research and development on a large scale is possible only in big companies. The benefit of research and development can be passed on to the similar units which are leading economy in the industry as a whole. So it will also help in competitive assessment. Computerized accounting system is also possible through the uniform costing system. There are certain advantages to workers, those who are working in the participating units, in terms of the uniform wage structure will be applicable in the same industry. Then it will increase in profit of participating firms. Then more bonus and amenities may be provided for the workers. It also helps for the trade associations because this helps the trade association in negotiating in any trade matter with government, say for adjustment of tariff, release of imported material, price fixation, financing or modernization. It will also help the consumers because uniform costing results in economy, benefit of which is also passed to the consumer in the form of lower prices. And the last but not the least, the industry. Uniform costing enable industry to place important cost data before the government and trade unions for negotiation in respect of matters such as tariffs, imports, raw material, fixation of minimum wages, and it will eliminate all type of wastages and inefficiencies, increases the competitive strength of the industry in the field of export trade, and industries can be regulated on a sound line. As every coin is having the two sides, though there are advantages of uniform costing, but still uniform costing is having some sort of disadvantages also. The first disadvantage of uniform costing system is it is difficult in application. It is difficult to lay down uniform costing methods and principles of cost analysis, ascertainment, and its presentation among the industry. Widely variety in size, degrees, and nature of the mechanized and in use of methods, operations, and process. As I already said, the uniform costing method is more useful in the same industry. But as you know, the principles of cost analysis, then ascertainment and presentation among the unit, they may be depend on the size of that particular unit or their operations and nature. So therefore, it will become difficult for the any industry to make it applicable in their own industry. Second thing is it is more expensive. The front or the main point of view of the small basic business units is particularly the system become too more or too much expensive for the smaller companies because installation of cost accounting systems and operations it will not commensurate within the benefits which will be derived through the uniform costing system. Therefore, it is not beneficial for the smaller industries. Then sometimes the unwillingness for supply of information is also there. Many industries they don't want to supply the information with the another industry. Therefore, this is called as a major limitation of the uniform costing system. Then in market there are monopolistic conditions may create. How it will create the monopolistic condition? Let's say there are certain tendencies within the industry. Prices may be raised and supplied. It will curtail in order to create the shortage, and thus it may be harmful to the interest of the consumers. There is one more limitation which is called rigidity. It may tend to rigid the cost system and flexibility is also affected. And the one more limitation is difficulty in understanding. The standardized terminologies adopted by group may not be understood by the individual members, and therefore majority of limitations mentioned are establishment and operational problems, but not difficult in the system itself. Hence, even though these limitations can be overcome through revealing the mutual trust, spirit of cooperation, and it will create a confidence among all the participating members of the company. So this was all about the uniform costing. Thank you for your patience listening, and I request you to kindly subscribe my YouTube channel for the latest and updated videos regarding our lecture series. Thank you so much.